Closing out a losing trade is progress, and we're going to talk about the correct perspective on having to make these type of tough decisions. New traders don't want to be wrong, and they don't want to lose money. A lot of times a small loss can turn into a devastating loss because they don't want to face those type of emotions or that type of embarrassment or a combination of all these things. Now, this can happen if you have a small account or a big account. It does not matter. But at the very beginning, we want to make sure that you create the habit and we create a decisiveness on closing out losing trades at a small loss. And this is going to take practice because you've never done this before. You're going to have to do it repeatedly until you get comfortable closing out losing trades. Now, the other thing about closing out losing trades is you have to also control your position size. Because if you have a large position, it's going to be a little bit more challenging to close out that losing trade, because most traders do not close out the losing trade, not just because they don't want to face the financial loss or their emotional part of it, because if they close out this trade, what if it turns into a profitable trade? Now, that's the mentality behind that's the mentality behind not closing out a lot of losing trades. But when will you decide to say, hey, enough is enough? This trade has to get closed out. Now, a little simple example, a little fun example that I can help you with understanding or getting the correct perspective and getting the strength to deal with tough decisions while you're trading, because this is going to be for your trading career. You're going to have to make tough decisions fast and not worry about what if, and say, hey, this is the correct decision right now. So let's say you're going somewhere and you have your GPS, you say you're going to get there in 30 minutes. So you're here, your starting point's here, you're here, and let's say you're driving, let's say this is the end point to make things a little easier, and you pass the exit, right? Now, how much longer is it going to take you to get to this point, right? So as you continue going in the wrong direction, which is losing trade, right? Because you want your account to go higher and it's going lower. So you're going in the wrong direction and you miss one exit. And let's say it wasn't on purpose, right? You were having fun, you were listening to your music, you were probably chatting, having a good time with some friends and family while you're going to this event, and you miss a second exit. But at some point, if you miss exit again, right? Now a small loss, right? We talk about the 4 types of losses: a planned loss, a respectable loss, an embarrassing loss, and a devastating loss, right? And you close out that trade at a devastating loss. How much time is it going to take you to turn around and recover to get to that point? When you do that, it's also going to be very, very important that you don't trade aggressively, because you lost not only money, but you lost a lot of time. So when you're closing out a trade, make sure that you just miss one exit, right? You turn around and it's a lot faster to get you back to your destination. If you miss 2 exits, it's a little longer to get back to your destination, but that time in a trader's mind becomes a lot of pressure. So they still don't close out that trade because they're already thinking, well, it's going to be a lot of pressure now to go all the way from here to here, right? So make sure you gather the strength and say, you know what? This is just one trade of many. I have to get good at closing out trades, right? So if I start closing out trades more near the planned loss, you're making progress, right? No longer am I having embarrassing and devastating losses. If you have a challenge with too many open positions, then that's a progress also. But every single time you close out a losing trade and it's a small loss, you can practice it with 1 share. Then you get into the flow of, hey, this is just one trade, it didn't work out, because you're learning more about your strategy. So if your strategy produces a losing trade, then you're learning more about that part. You don't want to learn more about your strategy because you took a devastating loss. Now, if your strategy says you have to exit at this point and only lose 200, and you let it ride, now what did you learn about that strategy? You didn't learn anything except that that strategy said it's time for you to exit, and instead of you exiting at $200 loss, you let this ride to $1,000. Now, if you constantly are closing out your losing trades at a small loss, it'll get easier and easier, because a lot of times we don't close out a loss for a more intimate psychological reason, because once we close out that loss, we're no longer trading. We're no longer engaged. The excitement or boredom of the unknown outcome is no longer there. So we don't close out that trade, and we continue trading even though it's losing us money, even though we're going in the wrong direction, even though we're missing our exit to correct it. But at some point, if we want to go to this event, or however important this event is, of course, we're going to have to, you know what, we're going to have to pay more attention, exit, and start heading back into the right direction. So make sure that the excitement of trading or being involved in the market is not holding you back and allowing you to close out losing trades at a small loss. And then the drama and all the emotions that you have to deal with, because it'll really get intense, your emotions and everything else. And trading has a good way of doing that to traders that fills them with certain emotions, and unfortunately negative emotions seem to be more powerful and more intense, and we focus more on that than the positive emotions because they're a little bit more boring. Because if you say, okay, well, my strategy said to enter here, and it says I exit here, I lose $200, that's it, next trade, next trade, next trade. And you say, how can I become more of a robot? But it's more about building the emotional intelligence to love yourself more, to have the strength to say, hey, I don't want to go through these rough patches because, once again, I'm going in the wrong direction. The stock is giving me countless clues for me to take action and say, hey, you're going in the wrong direction. And that is the amount of the loss getting bigger and bigger and bigger past your planned loss, past respectable loss. Now it's getting to embarrassing loss and devastating loss. So the more you practice on exiting losing trades, the better you'll get at it, and the more focus you'll pay attention on getting closer to your profitable opportunity. Okay, hope this helped. Subscribe, leave a comment, support the channel, because we talk a lot about risk management, and we want to make sure that you control your losses to a small amount so you can have a good, safe trading journey. And as always, until next time, trade safe.